Hello, hello, hello. Hope everybody is doing well out there today. Just gonna get this chat pulled up here so then that way I am tracking along with you guys, and then we are going to get sending here. All right, well, like I said, I hope everybody had a good weekend. It's Monday. What the hell am I even talking about? Yeah, so I picked up a bunch of books over the last like week or two. Today we're only going to be getting into a handful of them. I pulled I got some Matrix comics, which those are pretty rare. You really don't see them floating around too often. I found two trade paperbacks. We're going to be taking a look at the trade paperback. The first one, it's got guys like Jeff Darrow in it, Paul Chadwick, uh, Bill Sienkiewicz is in there. So bunch of guys that I really like are in that book. So that's awesome. And Jeff Darrow, he was the art director or like the artist direction. I'm not entirely sure what his role was on The Matrix, but he had to do with the art aesthetic in that movie, which makes a lot of sense with all the wires and machinery and all that kind of stuff that you see in those books. And then as well, I got just a handful of, like, I got Turtle issues, some X-Men stuff that we're going to be taking a look at today. The rest of the stuff, like, I'm not even joking, it's like a stack like this tall. It's probably like 50 books, if not more than that. That we'll probably take a look at this upcoming week. Just a little bit of inside baseball. I've been pretty much working on comics full time for like the last like 7 months or so. Obviously, I still have to work a normal job to then make money to make comics. So I started up another business venture or whatever, not on myself, but went out and got another job. That starts this upcoming Monday. So I'm kind of contemplating either moving the streams to some day in the week. Like, I don't know, maybe like Thursday might be the best day to do it, like Thursday night, and do a stream then. It's hard to say. The reasoning why I like to do them earlier in the mornings is because my roommate, when he's here, is like downloading stuff. He also streams on Twitch and is playing games all the time. And when me and him are both streaming at the same time, the internet just dies. So it just gets laggy for us and everything like that. So I have to converse that with him a little bit to kind of see where his mind is at, if maybe he wants to swap days on when he's streaming. But we'll see. We might just end up sticking to Sunday mornings, or we might move to Sunday nights. That's probably going to be best. Either Thursday or Sunday is kind of the 2 days that I'm kind of looking at. I'll put up a poll. I'll do it right now, or write it down so I don't forget. So I'll have a poll up, and I'll just ask, like, hey, do you want to move to Sunday nights, or do you want to move to Thursday nights? And we'll kind of determine there what we're going to be doing with the streams. Having them Sunday morning has kind of been a pain for me because I've, especially coming up to this summer, because I'm going to be doing a lot of cons this summer. I've already done 4 this year, and I'm going to be doing a 5th and a 6th one here, and I'm going to be doing a 5th one here in a couple of weeks, and then I'm going to be going to Pittsburgh in September for Eddie Con. I'm going to be tabling that for 2 days, and obviously that's going to be on a Sunday. I might try to stream a little bit from the con, and then as well I'm going to be there a couple days prior and a couple days afterwards to like film stuff with some other YouTubers and whatnot to do hauls and all that kind of stuff. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at, or that's what I'm going to be doing them. So yeah, just got a lot of like stuff that's kind of moving around on my calendar. Once we get further into the year, we might bounce it back to Sunday mornings. But we'll see, because I think I have more luck with doing things more later in the evenings. That's when, most people aren't going to be working and they're free. So I usually have way more people popping into the streams then, and instead of having to come through and, watch what I'm doing like on replays. So, I think I have all my housekeeping. Well, I actually got one more thing. So the anthology is up for pre-order currently up on my website. It's just, I'm going to put this in here now. Clerg.com. Boom. So that is actually, it should be leaving the printer in like a day or two. From my estimation, well, sorry, today's the 14th. I think they said the 17th is when it's anticipated to be done and printed, and then it's going to start getting sent out to people from there. And it's usually about a week or two by the time we'll see books. So if you want to go on my website, pre-order it. The issue is $5. Every issue will get a copy, or every pre-order will get a free copy of my sketchbook. It's just a mini sketchbook. There's probably about 15 drawings or so in here. Just cool little cartoon drawings, and we got a little Savage Dragon in there that I did. And then all of them will have like a free drawing on the back as well. Just like a quick little 5-minute marker sketch or pencil sketch that I do. So again, head over to my website, get it pre-ordered, and then in about 2 to 3 weeks or so, the issue is actually going to be out, and then I'll start mailing them out to people from there. Let's go ahead and pop in here and start looking at some comics. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to take a look at is going to be the Matrix comics, since that's going to be the theme of the show today. Excuse me. Alright, so this came out through Burly Man Entertainment, and I was kind of, I guess, confused on where that had come from. Because Shaolin Cowboy had been originally published through that company. I didn't know what that company was. I thought it was maybe just like Jeff Darrow's company, some indie company. It was the Wachowskis' company apparently, and now they're defunct, obviously. And then all of Shaolin Cowboy gets all published through Dark Horse now. So when I had seen this, I was like, this is the only other place I've seen it, and then I ended up looking it up, and then come to find out, yeah, it's the Wachowskis. It was their old comic label. Alright, so the Wachowskis are in here. We got Jeff Darrow, Bill Sienkiewicz, Neil Gaiman, which, you know, fuck him. McKeever's in here. John Van Fleet, Dave Gibbons, David Lapham, Peter Bagg, one of my favorites. Troy Nixie, Paul Chadwick, one of my favorites. Ryder Wyndham, Killian Plunkett, Gregory Ruth, and Spencer Lamb. Like, when you look at the talent in this book, it is actually pretty insane. I dug up all the books that we're going to be taking a look at today, except for, all of these books I got for 50% off. I was kind of looking for kind of off the beaten path comic shops this weekend, and I had found one of those, like, game stores that sells like board games. People play like Magic and Warhammer, Dungeons and Dragons, all that kind of stuff. Like one of those types of stores. They don't sell but they're not advertised as a comic shop. Every once in a while, you can go into these places and you can find comics. So I walked in, and the store was packed full of people, and it was very dense with like the amount of product that they had. I walked up to the guy and had asked him, like, hey, do you guys sell any comics? And he's like, yeah, we have nothing but back issues, pretty much. We don't sell newer comics, and they're all going to be in the back. So I walked back there, and none of it was organized. It was literally just all in short boxes, long boxes, all floppy. None of them were bagged and boarded, so just raw copies just chilling in there. And they were all marked 50% off. So then, of course, when I saw that, I'm like, oh, I'm going to sit through here and just dig and dig and dig. And it was off the sticker price, and like I said, they were floppies. So I was able to find, like, this Transformers G.I. Joe copy. This guy here has a little bit of marker on the front of it. But, yeah, this is like... I mean, people on eBay have it for like $60 or so, but I would say, like, on average, it's probably like a $20 book or so. And they got this thing for a steal. Same thing with this. It's like, this was off the sticker price, and this was $21.95, so, I paid like $11 for it. So, just some killer deals. I got the John Romita Jr., Art of John Romita Jr. It's just kind of like a chronological look at his career and the things that he worked on for Marvel, pretty much from like the start to where he's kind of at now. Or that book had come out a couple of years ago. and that was a $50 book, and I ended up paying 25 bucks for it. So I left with like a fat stack of stuff and barely paid anything for it. And this was like one of the things that I pulled out and was pretty crazy to see. I have the Matrix ash can that they had pulled from the shelves originally, and I can't remember the reasoning why they pulled it off the shelves. I think it had something to do with Jeff Darrow's drawing in there, and it just wasn't appropriate for the universe, having it in a comic book, all that sort of stuff. So they pulled it. So they're not super expensive, but they're rare to find, and I found those just digging through a bin sometime last year, a couple hours away from here at a comic shop. I found one. So anyhow, obviously we got the Jeff Darrow cover here, and I thought this was pretty funny how it says drink colon on it. But yeah, this is straight up just ripped out of like Hard Boiled or Big Guy. Just straight up just some Jeff Darrow architecture. I'm gonna turn this light off so it's not killing us here. So when did this originally come out? So this was 2003. Looks like this is a first printing. I highly doubt that you did any more prints besides this one. They collected two of these. Like I said, I have the second book, but we're probably not going to take a look at it. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't even recall there being any artists in there that I even know who the hell they are. So I picked it up because it was just there and it was dirt cheap, and you never see these things floating out in the wild like I was saying earlier. So I just felt the need to grab that. So I like how they give you kind of like a little synopsis on, you know, what they've worked on in terms of the artists, writers, just a little bit of tidbits there. Through and through, we just got some good Jeff Darrow stuff. His style, honestly, had changed over time. Because when you look at some of his earlier stuff, like Hard Boiled, for instance, that's kind of the one that I point to. He isn't using a lot of these thicker brush lines like he does on his later stuff. So, you know, Shaolin Cowboy, Big Guy, this, he has that thicker, bold outline on a lot of things, and he's using the thicker brush. Typically with Jeff Darrow, you know, you would think like thin ass microns, using like a G pen, pen and nib, quill set, however you want to look at it. But he's getting pretty thick on these. So that's something that I first started noticing that he was doing once he hit Shaolin Cowboy. And he didn't lose like all the tedious detail. That's still there, but it's just drawn differently. Because before, you know, if you're familiar with Jeff Darrow and what he does, it's pretty much just crazy amounts of detail on a page at a time. How much can I fit on here before it becomes overwhelming and it's like just the perfect amount? And he kind of changed that detail from like drawing random shit all over the ground. So like, you know, there'd be Coke cans and car parts and trash, so on and so forth, just kind of littered all over the place. It's a lot more clean, and he took all of that energy and focused it more on the characters themselves, because typically in his previous comics, like, his characters aren't that detailed when you actually look at them. It's more the environment, and I think over time that has flipped. But there isn't a lot of drawing, obviously. It's like a lot of this is mostly just text from the Wachowskis. Just like 3 or 4 pages of art. So this next one's called Sweating the Small Stuff. And we got just straight up Bill Sienkiewicz on this. And it's like, who do you get to do a Matrix comic? It's like, Jeff Darrow makes a lot of sense. Obviously, he was, like I said, the art director, art influencer, whatever the hell he was on the book. Bill Sienkiewicz has that very painterly, scratchy style. It makes a lot of sense. I think Ashley Wood would have been a great addition to like a Matrix comic. And this is like right around the time when Ashley Wood started getting pretty popular, I would say. Around like late 90s, like Shadow Man comic is the first thing that I can think of that Ashley Wood had worked on. But yeah, just like his sketchiness on his drawings are really cool. There's some digital stuff that's going on in here that looks a little strange. Like the code here looks kind of weird with that being digitized. And there was something else back here too that looked a little out of place. This coffee. Like, I'm going to turn this light on here just real quick so you can see it a little better. Oh. Reset my camera here. My mistake. Wearing a hat and my brim on my hat smacked my camera off the stand. There we go. But yeah, this I don't know if it's like the coffee or this, but is it a paste on? It might be a paste on. So what I mean by that is, it looks like maybe it's like an image that they cut out and like glued onto the board. I'm fairly certain that's what this is, and they're just like zooming in and zooming in and zooming in because it's getting like pixelier, you know, less and less resolution. I swear to God, that's like just straight up just like a paste onto the page or a digitized JPEG or something that they stuck on there. It's really funky looking. Shut this off now. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Can't go wrong with Sienkiewicz. Or as Dave over at West Coast Avengers likes to say, Sienkiewicz. All right, so Ted McKeever. So I discovered him probably like within the last like year or so. I really like his artwork. I think he's like a good blend between Frank Miller and Mignola. He's like a good in-between cartoonist. That Mignola influence, I think, really comes through on like the more jagged, bold outlines. See it a lot in the hands, especially like down here with like these square hands. It looks very Hellboy-esque. And then Frank Miller, you know, with the black and white contrast, kind of like the shadows that are being played with. I see a lot of that. And like there's still simplicity to the drawing, which again really comes from that Frank Miller school. It's really cool drawing of Morpheus there. When I first saw this, I had thought it was Mr. Freeze because that's just like what I see. I don't know if it's Morpheus. Wow, this is a cool drawing. That is honestly really good cartooning. I like the exaggeration in the hands. It's like, and you can get away with stuff like this. And this is the kind of stuff that I try to strive for because you know my illustration skills aren't always the greatest, or I should say, isn't the greatest. So I have to try to be creative with like what I do with screen tones, inking, and things like that to try to still make it a clear, coherent image while still having it be exciting to try to make up for my shortcomings in illustration. So when I see things like this, it's cool to see how other people are managing to do that. And when you look at a lot of these drawings too, it's like a lot of them are very flat, you know what I mean? So again, that's one of my things that I also struggle with a lot of the times is having things be more in perspective and having some depth to it, as opposed to this where it all just looks flat. All right. So this is a Neil Gaiman story with Bill Sienkiewicz and Gregory Ruth in here. And this is a lot of text. I had flipped through this book earlier just to kind of get an idea, you know, about what I'd be talking about. And this is straight up just like a book with just handfuls of art in there. I haven't bothered to actually sit down and read it, and to be honest with you, I'm probably not going to, strictly because it's Neil Gaiman. I never really gave a shit about the guy to begin with, and now I really don't give a shit about the guy because of, you know, his whole debacle with just being a shitty human being. I just have zero interest in going down that rabbit hole. Alright, I'll go back here, give this credit. So we've got John Van Fleet. This reminds me a lot of like Ashley Wood, and this would have been, you know, super popular around the time once you get into those late 90s, early 2000s books, and then this sort of aesthetic started to go away a little bit, and I think it's starting to come back a hair, especially in a lot of like image books. I would say I see a lot of imagery that kind of looks like this, how it has that digital painterly sort of look. Not a lot of detail, but it still has some cool aesthetic to it. Alright, so I know this guy here is going to be Dave Gibbons. You can just tell by the drawing. Dave Gibbons of Watchmen fame, of course. It's a little over-digitized, but I mean, you know, the dude's cartooning is top-notch. Like, this is a really strong drawing right here. And, like, this is a little wonky, I think. Mainly because it's like, look at this ladder back here, and like the scale of the ladder compared to these other two dudes, and like this window right here, like sill as well. And like, look how big this barrel is compared to him. It's like the scale in this is not great. Like this ladder, my honest opinion, just take it out of the fucking shot. Like this should have just been black. He probably should have been more in the foreground, like boost him up more, and maybe have him break the panels, and then shoot him down at him, or, you know, back at him. Because he's like, this barrel is gigantic. It's almost the same size as he is. And when you look at this window as well, like, look how fucking big this windowsill is compared to, like, his body. It's just, everything is too big in the background. And it's like, where is this, what is going on here? Like, this is confusing. So, this is bad storytelling, in sequential order. So, what happened here? So, they're in a gunfight. It looks like he pauses, he, like, ducks behind something to get a reload. But then now, all of a sudden, Agent Smith is up on a ladder, shooting downward, but they fucked up, because this is something in comics that you'll learn, and this is also something in movies that you see, where you don't break the visual line. So when things are occurring, and they're on the left-hand side of the page or the right-hand side of the page, same thing in movies, if it's like a screen thing that's happening, you have to have some sort of cut, like a page refresh, a panel refresh, or what have you, like a close-up, so that way you can flip the image and it doesn't become confusing to the reader on why these two characters swapped places. So like, look here, he's on the left hand side, he's on the right hand side. We get a weird reload animation. Now all of a sudden this dude's up on a fucking ladder. Why is he on this ladder? Like, how did he get there? There wasn't, like, there should have been maybe like another panel showing him like moving to the ladder while he's reloading. So that way you kind of understand that's what happened here. Like, something just gets extremely lost on this page. And it literally just comes down to, he should have drawn the Agent Smith, like, moving to the ladder. Or he easily could have just flipped this image. And then still then, that would have made more sense of what side everything would have been on. Yeah, this is just weird. Weird page. what is going on in this? Like, like honestly though, like what is happening? Here's a dude shooting. Here's a dude shooting. Oh, now there's an Agent Smith here. Now there's another Agent Smith. So it's like, it looks like that they're cornering him, but there's no like illustration. Like, take the camera up, away from the alleyway, so you get like more of a bird's eye view, and show us that he's actually getting us surrounded. Show us the surrounding, because this entire time in this comic, like, we don't really get that he's in a fucking alleyway. It's like, oh, here he is kind of on a street. Here he goes, like, kind of in between some buildings. But it's like, there isn't enough, like, exposition, enough explanation about, like, what's going on. And it's honestly, it's really confusing. Just like the compositions are just bad. The page layouts. Not one of Dave Gibbons' stronger ones, that's for sure. Very, very strange. Wow. Yeah, that's... I'm honestly, I'm at a loss for words. That was one of, like, the weakest, most just, not, I wouldn't say off the wall, just nothing, none of it made sense. It wasn't coherent at all, just a strange story. I don't know, man. Alright, so we got Troy Nixie and we got Dave McCaig on the colors on this one. This is a pretty fun style. I think out of all of the other ones that are in here, so let me take a look. Oh no, we got Peter Bagg in here. It's definitely going to be the most cartoony. But it's awesome though, just like kind of seeing everybody's kind of different takes on their stories within the Matrix universe. And just how they draw the technology, especially. Obviously, Jeff Darrow is going to be the king at drawing this stuff because, you know, he's the one that designed it. But it's still super interesting to see how these people are putting the stuff together kind of within their own styles. Interesting. All right, on to Peter Bagg. So Peter Bagg is one of my all-time favorite cartoonists. He's definitely up there for me. I'm a big fan of graphics guys, so, you know, Peter Bagg, Dan Klaus, all those dudes that kind of fit in within that same category. This is the only thing that I actually have read through before a stream, because like I said, he's one of my favorites. So anything Peter Bagg, I can pretty much just read through it right away. And if you're familiar with his work, you know, he's done things like Hate, so on and so forth. And that's very much like a slice of life sort of play on things, to where it's very grounded and cartoony. So that's what they're playing on here, is, you know, they're just making fun of some dude at a movie theater that went and saw The Matrix. David Lapham. Some super strong black and white illustrations. I really like the inking style that this dude has. Honestly, it reminds me a lot of like a Toth or like a Wally Wood, sort of that 50s 60s inking style that you saw in a lot of those black and white comics. A lot of Wally Wood, I see. This motorcycle and this car had to have been traced. You can kind of tell because like they're too perfect of a shape, and if you can draw cars and motorcycles that well, like good on you. Uh, but when things are that spot on, it's pretty much like a telltale sign that it was probably traced off. Which is fine. I was honestly kind of the mind when I first started cartooning, like, you don't fucking trace, you just don't do that, so on and so forth, is because it's a big no-no. So if you're tracing, obviously you shouldn't be tracing other people's drawings, but like, for instance, like that was a car. Hey man, if you can't draw cars and you gotta get your fucking comic done and it requires cars, get a good reference image, trace over top of it, trace over top your trace over top your trace again, so it's like 3-4 times removed, and then, you know, go ahead and put that on your page then, and then that's the way your style will still seep through there and it just doesn't look like a clean trace. In Savage Dragon, I want to say it's like issue 2 or 3, there's a big splash page that Dragon is sitting on a motorcycle. And it's like pretty common knowledge if you're a Dragon fan that Eric Larson actually didn't draw that motorcycle because the motherfucker can't draw cars. He really can't draw buildings. He can't draw, you know, motorcycles, vehicles, all that kind of stuff. So he hired somebody to draw it for him. And then even then, that dude traced it out of the magazine, sent it to Eric, and then he did his own like trace over top of that. So that's what I mean though. It's like he basically paid somebody to trace it for him, from my understanding, which is like really funny in retrospect because he could have just done it himself. But yeah, man, I mean, that's just some of the hurdles that you kind of have to go through as a cartoonist. It's just, hey, I gotta get this in the story. My illustration skills aren't strong enough. You know, I'm just not there. I can't do it. You got to figure it out, man. You got to get your comic done. You got deadlines to hit and shit. You got to figure it out. So that's where you hire somebody to do it for you, or you just trace it off and you fucking move on. All right, so this is Paul Chadwick of Concrete fame. Paul Chadwick is, again, one of my all-time favorite guys in comics. Huge fan of Concrete. I preach about Concrete all the time. And I always say that Concrete has like some of the best underwater sequences in comics. So if you're trying to find like a good story or a reference or anything like that where it takes place underwater, Concrete has a lot of that. Mainly because, you know, he can breathe underwater, so on and so forth. So a lot of creative things happen within that book to keep it interesting. We've got to back up here. So we got Ryder Winham, Killen Plunkett, Jeremy Cox. When I was flipping through this comic to me looked the most 90s out of them, even though this book came out in 03. It still had that image 90s kind of like look to it. So that's what I saw in my head when I had first seen this. All right, Gregory Ruth. Again, very much in that Ashley Wood sort of look, that painterly sort of sketch style. In this like terrible ass font that was like used all the time too at the time. You saw Ashley Wood kind of use that in their artwork as well. And then just straight up, this is just some Jeff Darrow art. Looks like storyboards. And then advertisements for some other stuff. All right, so that was 12 short stories that were put in here. Like I said, there is a second volume of this that's floating around. I would probably skip out on that. If you do find it cheap, sure, why not? But just from a collector standpoint, there really wasn't anybody in that book that I'm aware of that's really like, sought after. So you could probably skip it, but this book has like a lot of heavy hitters in here. So, the Matrix trade paperback. All right. All right. Move on to the next one here. So this comic is called I can't even read this damn font, to be honest with you. Terrible font treatment. But yeah, I still have no idea. Oh, let's see if it says what this is. Crash Pad is what it says. Terrible font choice. But this is Gary Panter. Gary Panter, I love. He's a pretty big influence on me. If you guys, have seen my drawings and illustrations, guys like Gary Panter, Johnny Ryan, like those sorts of cartoonists that are kind of like underground, off the wall, still very cartoony. I like to draw in this style a lot, and I kind of think that my style is like a good middle ground between stuff like this and then more of like an outlaw style, kind of like a James O'Barr, I guess is what else I would point to. But yeah, I love Gary Panter. If you're not familiar with Gary Panter and kind of what he's done previously, he was it's kind of the same thing like Jeff Darrow with The Matrix. Gary Panter was kind of like the art director or the art inspiration behind Pee-wee's Playhouse. So when you look at his art, you see a lot of that Pee-wee's Playhouse aesthetic kind of coming through, with the couch, the house design, all the trinkets that are kind of laying about. It is all pretty much designed. It comes from the mind of Gary Panter. Gary Panter, I would definitely categorize as like an underground cartoonist, probably, but he doesn't get into like the a lot of the stuff that you see in underground stuff, like a lot of the gratuitous sex. You know, with undergrounds, you see anything and everything, and typically he keeps it pretty tame, but just because of his drawing style, the kind of things that he's making is definitely very underground. Like, this is not a mainstream comic by any stretch of the imagination. It's literally about some cats going on an acid trip from what it looks like here. But like I said, he keeps all of like the nudity, the gratuitous sex stuff, just like the gross nastiness aspect of like underground comics. He keeps out of his comics. So if you want to start getting more into like strange underground comics or cartoonists, I would think that Gary Panter is very much a good kind of like onboarding point to kind of get your feet wet with the style of comic. So this was Crash Pad. Looked like this was the second go at it. It originally came out in 18, and this was republished in 22. Alright, so I, again, went into that board game store that just kind of had back issues from all over the place. They still had ash cans from a couple of years ago just sitting out for free because nobody's really going into that place looking for comics. Apparently I was the only one in the last 10 years. Because this thing is almost 10 years old now at this point. It might be older, actually. I think it said it was from like 07, or did it say it was like from 04? Let me see. Or, sorry, 2014. Yeah, it's from 2015. So it's literally 10 years old now at this point, and it was still just sitting on their shelf. Pretty much brand spanking new. As you can see, like, no fade on it whatsoever. I love Archie. I've always loved how Archie looks. I love cartoons. And I think that Archie gets a lot of shit from a lot of people because obviously it's very much like your square comic, your family-friendly style of comic. But, dude, the illustrations in them are so good. Cartooning in them is so good. The lettering, the writing, it's just top to bottom. It's just Archie comics are just fantastic, man. Um, I'm a big fan. Like I like Jughead a lot, and I love Sabrina as well. So anything spooky or more on like the funny side of things, I tend to lean towards in like the Archie universe. But yeah, just a cool little free ash can that I picked up. Good Archie. All right, so X-Men Grand Design Extension. I have all of the Grand Design books. I probably already own 2 copies of this one specifically, so this is the third one that I bought. I call them rescue missions. Anytime that I will see, uh, Ed Piskor stuff, Jim Rugg stuff, Jim Mahfood stuff. Anytime like kayfabe related, I will pull and uh, you know go on rescue missions. Basically, give them out to people, sell them off. I don't want to see the stuff rotten in back issue bins, so I save them. So if you're unfamiliar with the X-Men Grand Design, I believe it was what did they do 3 issues of this? I could be wrong, but I think that's the case. I think they did 3 issues of it. It's more or less like a greatest hits. That's the best way to look at it. They take all of the X-Men uh, history, sort of all the events that had happened, and they condense them down into a handful of books. So it's a lot of reading, it's a lot of research and whatnot that you have to do to kind of determine, hey, here's what's important, here's what's not, I'm going to cut this, I'm going to add that, so on and so forth. So if you're looking to get into comics, these are always good kind of onboarding points to start getting into like these specific characters. So like the X-Men, there was a Hulk one, there was a Fantastic Four one, and I think that was the only 3 that they had done. Um, so yeah, just highly recommend it. And then the artists themselves, will put it into their own style, so you can see that this is 100% drawn by ADP. Ed is probably like my biggest influence and is for sure the reason why I'm making comics. Like there's really no if, ands, or buts about that. That's just the way that it is. Really looked up to the guy. He fucking breathed, lived comics every day of his life, and that's something that I also should strive to do. So yeah, like I said, anytime I see any of his stuff or Jim's stuff or what have you kind of floating out in the wild, I will grab it and I will save it. So now I'm a proud owner of another issue of Grand Design. All right, and this is going to be the last thing that we're going to be taking a look at today. Just some quick Turtle stuff. So this is the movie adaptation that Archie had put out. Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird did draw this. Who did they have coloring it? Was it Cho? Steve Levine. Okay, so yeah, it looks like we got Eastman and Laird on inks, and Jim Lawson was the penciler on here. Which makes a lot of sense. Is what I found strange is that Archie had put this out and not Mirage. Was You would think that Mirage would have put this out because it's still in like that classic Turtles aesthetic. It isn't in the cartoon slash like movie aesthetic. And you would think that with the Archie Adventure series that it would have been illustrated more like the cartoon, but it's not. It's just straight up, hey, here's the Turtles and what they looked like, kind of in those earlier Mirage issues. They're a little cartoonied up compared to what they looked like originally, but it's not far off, be honest with you. But yeah, this is straight up just a movie adaptation. I flipped through this a little bit, and there is a lot of stuff that happens in here that does not happen in the movie. Oh, wow, just like a little Misfits logo there. But yeah, this is a pretty cool comic, and I mean you cannot go wrong with the '90 movie. It's a bona fide comic book classic, and I'd even say it's a classic movie. Really groundbreaking for the time. I still think to this day that the turtle suits, the animatronics that they were using in their faces, especially on the second movie, is like some of the best live action animatronics that you will see that's attached to a costume, because obviously they really don't do that kind of stuff anymore. Um, and Adam Savage, who I'm a big fan of, also kind of talks about that, how Jim Henson just fucking killed it on those two movies, especially the second one. Just the puppeteering is insane with the amount of movement that they get, and you know, the eyes and the mouths and all that kind of stuff. So good shit, man. Just a quick little flip through that. Like I said, today's stream was more or less just trying to get through that Matrix book, and we did that. I will show you guys real quick here so I can just kind of give you a look at what we're going to be doing this upcoming stream, this upcoming weekend. I got a fat stack of books. A lot of anthologies. I have, you know, Comics Journal, a bunch of Jim Rugg stuff, Love and Rockets. A vast majority of this stuff, though, I pulled out of the dollar bins. Because as you guys know, I am a big dollar bin, 50-cent bin guy, all that kind of stuff. So that's what I like to dig for. That's what I like to collect, just weird, obscure shit. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at later this week. Like I said, I'm going to be putting a poll up to kind of ask you guys, hey, do you want to move streams to Thursday nights, or do you want to move them to Sunday nights? Strictly because, again, I'm starting up a new gig here this upcoming week. So I had to move some stuff around, and that's one of the reasonings why as well. Like the last 2 weeks, I haven't been able to do streams on Sundays, is because this place I've been kind of going back and forth doing interviews with, and it's an hour and some change away from here. So that's why I've been doing a lot of like traveling. So yeah, just keep an eye out for that poll. I'll have it up, and then that will kind of determine on what we're going to be doing going forward. So just keep an eye out for that. And then, yeah, I hope everybody has a good rest of your day. Thanks for hanging out and talking comics, and I'll see you in a couple days.